Welcome back to the Restaurant Technology Guys podcast. In today's episode is a great one for anybody in the hospitality or restaurant industry. If you've ever wondered how to unlock hidden revenue, increase staff performance, or elevate guest experience without spending a dime on advertising, then this is a great conversation for you. I'm joined by Geoffrey Toffetti, the CEO of Frontline Performance Group. He has spent decades really launching a product on how to help frontline teams turn service into extraordinary results. They've got real time analytics, AI powered training, and restaurants that are seeing upwards of 10% revenue growth just by investing in their staff and helping them to run a better restaurant. Whether you're a single location or a national chain, this episode is going to help you make your business better, make your bartenders better, and your servers better, and truly drive next level performance just by investing in your staff. If you don't know me, my name is Julian. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer for CBS North Star. We sell the North Star point of sale solution for multi-units. Please check us out at cbsnorthstar.com. And now on to the episode. Welcome back to the Restaurant Technology Guys podcast. I thank everyone out there for joining us. Like I like to say each and every time, thank you guys for joining because I know you guys got lots of choices. Today, I am very intrigued about where this conversation is going to go. But Geoffrey, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit and then we can talk a little bit about what the business does, because I know you and I rapped for just the last 10 minutes or so before I hit the record button. And I am so excited because I think way more people than realize need to be hearing your guys' message and what you guys are doing. So why don't you introduce yourself and then we can talk a little bit about what you get to do professionally.
Sure. My name is Geoffrey Toffetti. I live in Orlando, Florida with my family. I'm married with one adult son and one almost adult son, and grew up in St. Pete, Florida, born in New York, but lived in St. Pete most of my life, and actually started my career in hospitality, worked for a big beach resort called the Trade Winds on St. Pete Beach, and worked my way up from valet through the front of the house to director of guest services before leaving the industry in 2000 to move to Orlando to join a dot-com startup at the time, not FPG, company called Zero Chaos. So I've had a interesting in and out of hospitality career, but it kind of set me up to do what we're doing because I had classic corporate work experience supporting the Fortune 500, and then also on the ground frontline experience. So it kind of came together in my current role.
I love that. And I love, really, quite frankly, the convergence of kind of hospitality. When you talk about hospitality, that being kind of hotel and lodging, and how so many of those skills transfer over to the restaurant industry, and what the majority of the people are that are listeners are majority kind of food service. They may be attached to a hotel, those kind of things. So talk to me a little bit about your current role. What have you been up to lately?
Yeah, so I'm currently CEO of Frontline Performance Group. I joined the company 14 years ago, but the company is in its 33rd year. And FPG has always worked with frontline employees, not always in hospitality or in restaurant, but always where the hourly frontline employee is interacting with the guest or customer, and there's an opportunity to enhance the experience and charge more money. So any call centers, reservation centers, car rental, theme parks, we've worked in a lot of industries, but right now we are primarily focused on hospitality and restaurant and bar. A lot of restaurant and bar in hospitality because we have so many hotel customers. We work with about 2,700 hotels worldwide and growing every month. And we support all of those hotels at their front desk and maybe a smattering of other touch points. But now we're hyper focused on restaurant. We've been studying it for years. We've been working on our technology for about a year and a half to enable what we do in a restaurant environment. And I'm really excited for this conversation because the topic of this podcast is perfect for where we're going and what we're attempting to do. But so far we're having great success, and there's a lot of enthusiasm from our customer base on this because of what we were talking about before we were recording. Is there just seems to be a complete lack of solutions targeting the performance of the servers and bartenders in food services. It seems that everything is focused on everything else and leaving that kind of just hanging out there. And that's the only thing we do. So it's a perfect gap in a huge market for us to step into and help restaurateurs and restaurant companies address that potential, because there's a vast amount of revenue untapped in your existing customers and with your existing staff. And I would love to dig deep on that while we're talking today.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'd love for you to share a little bit about where you see, obviously, you guys see this as a huge market, huge opportunity, but talk me through even what it is that you guys focus on because it's the largest part of the workforce, but often the least invested in. And again, you and I were talking about this prior to hit and record, but it's like they don't invest high turnover, it's this, oh, go follow this person on a shift for an hour and now you got your own shift. We know that doesn't work. It's not effective, but it is a lot of times how restaurants and hospitality works. And so I'd love for you to talk through what do you see as the problem prior to walking through where you guys are at solution wise and how you guys are going about it.
Yeah, I think that was a great introduction to the problem that you just described. So the problem that we see is there's no systemized training for revenue generation. There's no sales process that they'll train to. If you go to work at a car dealership, they're going to put you through a rigorous training program to understand how to sell their cars. They don't leave it open for chance that you're going to know what to do. They teach you, and that isn't happening that we've observed in food and beverage. It's exactly what you'd say. You hire someone, they tail someone for a day or two, and then they release them into the wild and hope that they do well. And then they don't really measure how they're doing. They might measure it sporadically, but unless something significant happens, they're probably not going to call attention to someone. You show up to work on time and you're pleasant enough, you're probably safe. And that's not how we view it. We view each person is basically a profit center and should be nurtured as such. When we analyze data, we're looking for things like, what is the differential between the top 20 and the bottom half? How big a gap is there on your key metrics between those people? Because that gap can be closed through training, through incentivization, through recognition programs, through accountability. And so that's the approach we take is we say, we're going into restaurants now and we're seeing a 30% differential between the top 20% and the bottom half. That is a tremendous amount of untapped revenue potential when you're operating on a sub 10% net margin or sub 20% net margin. That could double your profit. And it's there. It's the same customers, it's the same kitchen, it's the same staff. It's just a different skill set being infused into the team that allows that bottom 50% to perform where your top 20% is performing now. And the top 20% will get better because you're going to be investing in them too. So that's what we're seeing.
Besides the fact that there's a competitive factor a lot of times because you got the bottom pushing them up. And so they'll be like, no, I'm not going to let you catch me. I'm going to go do this. I've seen it myself when you invest in the team. You see that same thing. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I think it's important to realize that your top performers will continue to excel and even exceed expectations. And those bottom performers start to chase them.
That's correct. And we believe very firmly in leaderboards. That's a big part of accountability. And when you have a shift by shift leaderboard across a variety of key metrics, that's exactly what happens. And to be fair, when we go into these establishments, the people that are in the middle or the bottom half, they don't know they're in the bottom half because no one's ever told them that they're in the bottom half. And it gets particularly interesting when you put a leaderboard of average tip percentage, which is something we're bringing too, is because that's the service component of things. And people are shocked when they see they're averaging 18.5 or 19%. They feel good about themselves and they don't know their peers are getting 22%. And that's money in their pocket. So there's a lot of what's in it for them to get engaged in the training. And when they realize that they can make more money, this is what's interesting. If you train servers, they make more money. So there's it's not just training for training's sake. We want to help you increase your income and increase the profitability of the outlet.
And it's funny you say that because I was just at the show in Orlando last week, FS Tech, when we're recording this, and somebody from stage said, when we look at technology and investment, is it making the guest experience better? Is it making the staff experience better? And is it helping the restaurant to grow their revenue? And to your point, better tips for the staff member, better guest experience, and ultimately higher check averages, which means the restaurant is going to end up being a better off and making more profit. And Geoffrey, talk me through a little bit, just because everybody gets a little concerned about, we're just going to keep driving towards higher tips and inherently servers are going to
are maybe not delivering that same level. And so I'd love to talk through some of the things that you guys think about on the downside of this, because just driving the guest check average up doesn't necessarily always create better guest experience. Doesn't, and I'll share real quick a story that I watched on LinkedIn last week that said, be really careful not to throw a $10 dessert to lock a table for another hour split between two people, because that might not necessarily be, you'd rather them go to the ice cream shop and reseat that table if that table could have gotten up at 7:15 or 7:30 and I reset it and now I got a full entree. And so you get a little bit of that juxtaposition. So I'd love for you to talk through kind of some of the downsides and some of the things you guys have to think about when you guys are looking for a balanced scorecard for the staff members.
Yeah, first of all, our sales program, our sales philosophy, we call service-based sales. Everything we teach, everything that we promote is to do it through service. So in order to do that, you have to be having the right kind of conversation with your customer. You have to be asking them questions. You have to be listening to what they're saying. They're giving you clues all the time. And then you leverage that into more of a higher revenue transaction or more add-ons or more drink replenishments or whatever it is that's going to drive the check. And your point is exactly right. If someone's been sitting there for an hour and a half, you don't want to sell them a dessert necessarily if there's people waiting. That's a perfectly valid point. But there's a lot more you could have sold at the beginning of the transaction. You could have locked them into appetizers. You could have locked them into modifiers. We love auto replenishment. We love asking guests, we're busy today. Would you mind if I automatically replenish your drinks when I bring your entrees? You can almost guarantee another round. That can be 20, 30% on your check. But yeah, so we don't want to, first of all, you never want to push anything. You never want to be salesy or cheesy or any of that. You want to have a legitimate dialogue with people, but you want to be assertive and confident in your recommendations. There's nothing more irksome to me when I ask a waiter for their opinion and they give me 8 things. Give me the one thing, the 2 things, or ask me a qualifying question. Do you prefer steak or chicken? It's simple stuff that just isn't.
Or my favorite is, I don't even eat here, so I don't know. Like, I've had that happen.
Yeah, I've never
before,
tasted that
we all
before.
know how awful that experience is.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of, when you start studying a problem, you start realizing there's a lot of little things that can be corrected very easily to improve the guest experience. But like what you said, people are saying, does it improve the guest experience? Does it improve the dining experience? How do you improve the guest experience? Often there's stuff you just avoid doing. Don't disappear in the middle of the meal for 20 minutes because you're like, I finally delivered their entrees. I can go in the back and hang out. Make sure that you bring the condiments that they request. There's like those things. But what we're finding is just the awareness that there is a performance gap and the realization of the servers that if I increase my average revenue per guest, and I deliver better service, I'm going to get a double plus. I'm going to get more revenue and a higher tip average, which is it compounds the income effect of being a higher performer. And yeah, so it's not sell everything all the time. It's sell the most that will maximize the experience of the guest and maximize the revenue per guest.
Yeah. So talk me through how you guys do that, because I think, again, I've talked about it on the show before. My wife and I went out for our anniversary earlier this summer. We went to a high-end restaurant, had one of the most amazing service experience, Carbone in Dallas. I recommend it to anybody that's here. If you've been to the one in New York, it's also amazing. But it was over the top, and the guy ended up getting us the 45-day age Wagyu because he was just so good at, it was one of those experiences where I was like, wow, I don't know that the service could have been any better, but you could tell that he knew exactly what he's doing. They had invested in it. Even the front desk, they had invested in greeting us when we walked in. And so you could tell that however Mario and his leadership team had put those things together, the manager stopped by before the end of the meal and dropped a business card and said, if you're ever back on this side of town, make sure you reach out to me. So they went way over the top. And when you have an experience like that, you want to go back to that. Talk me through kind of even the sequence of service. When you guys go into a brand, do you guys start all the way at the person coming into the front desk and you train there? Like, walk me through that before we kind of get into the tech that you guys are starting to do, really that's helping with us.
Yeah, I have to mention the tech a little because we deliver our training digitally. So we have our own learning management system that's proprietary to us and it has all of our own proprietary content. And that content does span from general service, like please and thank you, ladies and gentlemen training. We've worked with the top luxury hotels in the world, so we're very good at service standards. And we don't think there should be a difference between that restaurant and your neighborhood restaurant when it comes to engaging with you. I mean, it's just humans and humans, right? But it is a training problem. They're just not
Hmm.
aware of it. So when we go into into an establishment, there is some fundamental training that is provided, human, virtually instructed, led like a webinar. And then it leads into the coursework that is very small, less than 2 minutes per segment, highly specific, skill specific, and very tactical. We like to say it's taking common sense and making it commonplace. We're not
Hmm.
reinventing the wheel. It's just a matter of systemizing it so that every single person in the outlet goes through the same training. They sign up for the same standard and then measuring it and showing it to them and showing them, okay, you are not meeting whatever standard we have. You are still have deficits, and here's training to help you close those deficits. It's never punitive, but we baseline everyone's performance pretty quickly because that's what the analytics does. And then it tells us exactly where their issues are. It's not just general, like your check average is too low. It's your check average is too low because your drink replenishment rate is too low, or you are never adding or modifying the dish. You're never selling an add-on. It gets very, very specific, or you're only selling low margin add-ons and never selling high margin add-ons. So it's highly scientific, but that's the approach is recognize everyone has some foundational amount of training that needs to occur, the baseline of
Hmm.
training. And then the training that continues from there is based on their individual performance.
Well, and I guess how customized do you guys get? You use ladies and gentlemen for anybody that's ever stayed at a Ritz Carlton, or read any of Horst Schultz. I've read his book. It's amazing. He talks about ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. So I'm assuming that's kind of from that hospitality industry where that phrase came from. But that is something specific. Everybody has heard "It's my pleasure" at a Chick-fil-A. It's kind of their signature when they deliver something. And so I'd love to kind of understand exactly where across the board, how customized, because yes, looking somebody in the eye, getting down at table level, a lot of these things, making sure that you take notes on what condiments they wanted and bringing, those are just generic across the board type things that have to happen. And then there's certain things that make it specific to that brand. Do you guys go to that level, or is it just a high level in the analytics?
Yeah, no, the training, it can go as deep as they want. So the fundamental training is more, don't use bad language, stand up straight, look people in the eye, use their name if they give it to you, use your name, all the fundamentals. And then when it gets into specifics, the sales approach on an appetizer is a little different than an add-on because the timing during the meal service is different. Do you take the drink order before the appetizer? Yes. We advocate for, we have a process that is included, because one thing in a sales environment, if you don't have a defined process, then you're kind of just throwing spaghetti against the wall.
Hmm.
So you have to have steps, and then the training is rooted into those steps. So we have something we call the 5-course framework, which is basically just the structure of how sales should occur. And it doesn't matter if it's fine dining steakhouse or your local, Mexican joint. This
I
process
love that.
works every time. And it takes them through the cadence of the experience. What we don't get into, like menu design, and we don't get into aesthetics, and we're not experts at that. We're experts at the table or across the bar. So the training gets very, very detailed if you go beyond that surface level. So if the manager, for instance, notices that someone, or the analytics is highlighting that someone is not selling something, they're never selling the top steak, or they're never selling the more expensive wine, there's training in there for that, and it actually will provide them example dialogues. So the people that we put on video are actual experts. They're our homegrown experts. They're not actors. So they do a lot of training videos where they'll demonstrate exactly how you position, whatever it is you're positioning. They will give them examples of dialogues they can use to make it very, very service focused. And yeah, so it gets very specific.
I love that you guys get to that level. You talked a bunch about how you guys then measure, which I think is the second side of it. So we've given them the tools, we have provided them the training, but now in leadership, it doesn't matter if you don't measure it. What gets managed gets, and measured are the things that the staff will perform. And so help me understand how you guys go to that level, because to your point earlier, and I alluded to it, selling a dessert when you're on a 2-hour wait and you're going to split a $20 item, you probably don't want, you give them $20 to go to go get some ice cream down the
Yeah, give
road
them the
because you
dessert
want
so
to
they
seat
can
that
leave.
table again, right?
Give it to
Yeah,
go.
exactly. Hey, how about you take that dessert to go so that I can reseat the table? And obviously we're chuckling because we're in this industry, but we've seen it. We've seen that happen. We've seen them not get that extra table turn because they didn't train the staff to do that, and it hurt. On the flip side, we've seen it done well, and the experience is great. And so, talk to me through the data elements and how you guys balance that, because guest experience, profitability, and selling the high end steak or the high end wine all are part of the equation.
Yeah, the analytics is the thing I think that I find most exciting about food and beverage, because in the front desk work we do, there's a limited data set. It's really not very complex. In F&B, it's a very data-rich environment. It's almost so rich that no one uses it because it can overwhelm someone to try to get to that answer that you just asked about. So what we're doing is we're taking this highly complex data set and we are normalizing it down to a simple set of metrics, and then we're engaging AI. I know it's a big buzzword, but we are engaging AI to interpret the data in real time. So the thing, like, we're not a BI platform where we're going to have fancy reports we're going to give them to a manager and we're going to hope the manager knows what to do with it to affect change. We're actually giving the manager natural language guidance on what to do with it. We're actually telling them what the data is saying. We're not showing them data. I mean, they can download it if they want, but it's more like never see Joff with more than 6 people because his revenue per guest drops 15% when he gets to his 6th or 7th person. That kind of stuff, that highly specific personalized stuff is what we're actually feeding. That's the intelligence we're feeding back. So when we're looking at the data, essentially what we're doing is we're taking the top performers in a given meal shift in a given outlet, and we're benchmarking the construct of their checks. So whatever they sold, it could be one day or it could be an entire month. Whatever they sold is going to become the benchmark across a few different categories. So things like your appetizer, adult beverage, add-ons, desserts. We're going to benchmark the profile of their checks. Then the AI is going to take that and it's going to go into everyone else's checks, and it's going to identify the greatest revenue opportunities for that person at that time. And then it's going to structure a personalized improvement plan, which can include specific data or specific videos they should watch that address specific issues. It's going to give the manager some dialogues they can use to engage the person. And it's also going to recommend pairings. We're a big believer in the restaurant industry that peer-to-peer learning is critical because it's a high-paced environment. So if someone is really good at selling wine, and you take someone who's not good at selling wine and you tell them, we're pairing you so you can improve your wine sales, then they're just listening to each other. It's a natural environment. They learn actually very quickly that way, and you can see it in the data. Then the key is whatever you've recommended or prescribed to help, remeasure it. So we don't just say, this is what happens with a lot of training. We've been a training company for decades. You go into training, you never know if they did it or not. It's hard to figure out if it actually happened. So we have AI agents that are watching that. So when someone is recommended a specific thing, it goes back and monitors that thing for that person. If it sees improvement, it recognizes it. If it doesn't, then it gives more remedial guidance. And if it normalizes and say, okay, that ratio has corrected itself, what is the next thing that this person could be working on? And that includes the tip averages too, because if we see low tip average and low revenue, you've got a lot of problems in there. But if you have a high tip average and low revenue, you're probably too nice, or you're discounting things and you shouldn't be discounting. It also monitors discounting and giveaways. So it's a very, very data rich, but instead of trying to put it on charts and graphs, we do some of that. There are charts and graphs, but the AI is taking it to a point where it can now give direct feedback to the manager in very easy to digest, guidance that they can take action on in a matter of minutes.
Yeah, no, and I think that we got through 20 minutes of the show before we talked about AI. That might be a record in 2025, but I'm good. It's amazing how often it comes up, and I'm teasing about it, but it's true because it does allow you the ability to ask things in ways that is natural language. I'm going to pivot just a little bit. We know that, and again, I just was at this conference. We've talked a lot about frontline workers being in this younger demographic and wanting and needing different things. I'd love to hear how, you talked about it earlier in kind of the 2-minute video being a pretty critical piece of what you're doing. I've got a 9-year-old or soon to be 10-year-old daughter at home, TikTok and all of that. They've got to, that's how they consume this information, I guess. How do you balance that with the seasoned server who's been there for 25 years, who is, in their 40s or 50s, to make sure that you're hitting both demographics and that you're able to deliver what they need to be able to make them better so the guests can be better?
Yeah, it's a challenge. We find the hardest people to train are the people who've been doing it the longest often. Now, the counterpoint to that is if they're a top performer, they're always looking to improve. It's fascinating. You can have someone who's been doing it for 30 years and they're a top performer, and you say, have you ever thought about this? And they're all ears because they're already intrinsically motivated to perform. But the content, that's why we have this phrase, common sense to commonplace, is we remind them that you probably already know a lot of this. You've probably done it in the past, but we're putting it into a process framework so that you do it every time, so that it's top of mind every transaction. It's not just occasionally when you feel like doing it. And the training videos are sometimes fairly irreverent. They're a little cheeky, maybe a little cheesy. It's
Good. I think you need
we're
it
not
though for this
launching,
industry.
Yeah, we're not launching rockets. We're selling food and drink. So yeah, it's highly engaging and it's highly relevant. We're not asking them to watch stuff that doesn't pertain to their performance. And chances are, I mean, we've done focus groups with the early servers that we were working with. And when you shed light on something like, did you know that your average revenue per guest is 30% less than your peers? It gets their attention. They don't know that. It just hasn't been readily available to them to know that they're not. And then once they know that, even if they're seasoned, they tend to perk up a little and say, oh, I didn't realize that I was not helping. I was actually hurting the business. So it is a challenge, but we've been doing this at front desks too. Like we go in environments where there's people who've been there for 40 years and we're teaching them how to do their job better. And it's just a matter of what's in it for them and treating them the way we want them to treat the guest. A core philosophy of mine and our entire business is you can expect your guests to receive exactly the same treatment you give the people you lead. So it's always from a loving place. It's always from the perspective of we want to help you make more money. We want to help you be more successful. And in turn, the business succeeds.
Yeah. And I think, once you get to that with them where it's going to ultimately make them make more money, they're all ears.
Right.
If it's just because somebody's beating me down to say it the way that they want me to say it, and they don't think it's going to actually net them anything. But what kind of results can you see? I guess talk me through the success stories in food and beverage. What does it look like once they've implemented the solution? Net result. What are the benefits to the end consumer as well as to the business and to the people that are impacted by this?
Yeah. So we're only in our first few hundred outlets in this. So the story is going to evolve, but what we're seeing is north of 8% revenue per guest improvement across all of the outlets.
8%. That's huge.
It can double. We didn't realize this. We did an analysis of publicly traded full service restaurant companies. And 8% is like, it could be an 80% increase to EBITDA.
Yep.
In front desk, you increase 8%. On the bottom line, it's like 2% because the rest of the revenue in the hotel is so big. So yeah, we're seeing that level of improvement because what we're seeing is and that's only a third of what the potential is in most restaurants because of that differential gap that I was describing to you. So north of 8%, we're hoping we can push it to 20% once we mature the model, and the AI gets a little bit more intelligent, and we can even better pinpoint exactly what are the dynamics that are causing people to not be able to sell as much. But even just with the amount of knowledge we have now and the training we have now, we're seeing high single-digit improvement in revenue per guest, which we now realize is huge. 3% probably would have been impressive, but we're not happy. We want to see it in the double digits, and we think that it's definitely doable because the X factor is your top performers improving, which we talked about before. It's not only your bottom performer. I mean, everyone's getting trained, everyone's getting incentivized, everyone's getting recognized. And the people at the top of the leaderboard, they're intrinsically motivated already. So we're seeing them increase at the same pace. But when they increase, it drives a disproportionate amount of improvement.
Yeah. And that's that whole Pareto's principle, the 80-20. There's so many of the people that are at the top that if you can just give them a little bit more, they're going to excel. Geoffrey, how would people engage? What does it look like? I'm a restaurant brand. I'm running 50 units. I'm now at a place where I'm like, you know what? I got to figure this thing out. How do I get in touch with your team? What does the experience look like? hopefully you guys aren't like, go watch these 2-minute videos and then call me if you're still interested. Obviously, I'm
No.
teasing, but I'm sure you guys have a proven process where you guys go through and walk them through how can you help them. Talk our listeners through what they can expect if they do reach out and how can they get in touch.
Yeah, so we put a lot of energy into the activation of a new client. The first 60 days is critical to everything that's going to happen after that. So no, we're not giving you a login and waving goodbye. And then you can't get anyone on the phone. We actually have a very robust support system, technical support, and not just technical, but tactical support as well. Like the first bit of stuff that has to get done, we're there to help. We're there to support. Right now, we are in the beginning, so we have a activation process that we're setting up on our website for restaurant companies that are interested. They would be considered early adopters until the end of first quarter 2026. So special considerations both ways. We're bringing this out for the first time. But you can go to our website. They could reach out to me on LinkedIn if they want to just talk more about it. I'm on LinkedIn, Geoffrey Toffetti, CEO of Frontline Performance Group. But we expect to first fully commercialize and ramp up in the first quarter of next year. We're already beginning the process of engaging our existing customers and educating them on what we're bringing out. And as I said, we're in a couple hundred outlets now through call it our friendliest relationships, who you go to with a new product. But the enthusiasm we're seeing is I've never in my entire career have I had this much excitement about something that we're going to try and sell. So there's a lot of energy around it because it's just the thing no one talks about. So if there's a simple, relatively low cost way to address it that can get a measurable result that can actually impact profit, everyone seems to be pretty interested. But our website has information about it. There'll be a page up there in like a week where people can actually sign up to be an early adopter if they want, and then get in the queue basically to get launched. But I would love to hear from them directly too. I would love to just have a conversation with them.
Yeah, no, and I know you and I just connected on LinkedIn. You're pretty active there and have got a pretty robust network that way. And again, I was about to tease that says it's got to all be about the AI because, that must be why everybody's so excited about it because everybody's so excited. They think AI is going to solve it. But I really think that you guys are onto something because, again, they're paying rent regardless. They're paying the people to be in the store. How do we because ultimately they'll be better off. They'll have a better quality of life. The store will be in a better spot. And ultimately the guest should leave more satisfied with the product that you have. And so I love that you guys are coming into the market and are really going to be able to make a difference in the lives of restaurateurs. It's funny that you talk about kind of 8% lift in sales is huge because again, there's certain costs that you've got that don't go away regardless of whether you get that extra 8%. And I'm sure that qualifies if we were to look straight down to the tips that the servers are getting as well.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that generally speaking, the restaurants operate on a low 2-digit, high 1-digit net margin. I didn't realize that. What a tough business, I'll tell you. So if we can, every dollar that you sell in addition from the same guest is 70% flow through. You take out your food cost and your labor's already there. So it is this crazy impact that it could have, and it's right there for the taking. No, you don't have to do any more advertising. You don't have to have any CapEx involved. Just a small subscription to us, and we'll give you the entire toolkit you need to do that. And I think if we look at a front desk, we have front desks that do 100-to-1 ROI on our subscription. We have others that do it 8-to-1. 8-to-1 is still a healthy ROI if it's clean and you can measure it. 100-to-1 is ridiculous. Well,
yeah, it's like, why I need to sign up for 1,000 of those things.
And those are luxury resorts. They just do extraordinarily well because they're just built for it. But we think the same thing's going to happen. The restaurant companies that fully buy into the idea that they can raise their revenue 8 to 15, 20% through their existing people, they'll get that result. That's like manifest destiny. The people that are like, they'll still get 3%, or 4% improvement, which is still impactful, but it's going to come down to the leadership buy-in to say, we are going to take as seriously our server performance as we do our menu design. And when we do that, we're going to be able to get a significantly more profitable as a result.
Yeah, no, and I love that. I don't think you mentioned the website directly. While it'll be linked in the show notes for those that are audio only, and obviously they can go find you on LinkedIn. But could you share the website real quick, just so that for those that maybe want to go check it out? And by the time this comes out, the extra link will be up there.
Sure, it's www.frontline PG, like Paul George.com. And there's everything is, the food and beverage section is on there. We call the product Checkmax. That's the product that we're subscribing to for restaurant support. And one last thought on the AI that I think is critical, because there is a lot of hype out there. But
Mhm.
the best use of AI that we have found is to take a complex problem and simplify it. That's the first
Mhm.
way to apply it in a tangible way in a business. And we're also using it to enhance human performance, not replace humans. We're all about human beings being in the equation. We're just using the AI to get better insight into what's actually happening in very noisy sets of data.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, it's anything that you can do to make the life of the staff member and the guest better is AI. And I say it all the time on the show, technology for technology's sake is worthless, but stuff that ultimately makes the business better, using AI in a smart way that can make the business better and make those people even better at what they already are doing an amazing job at is really the key to success. So I thank you guys for coming into the industry. I thank you for coming on the show to educate our listeners. Please go check out their new product. Let me know in the comments how you guys see it. I'm excited to see you guys continue to make your mark in the space. You and I will stay connected, and hopefully we'll run into each other at a trade show. For those listeners that haven't already subscribed, please do so and make it a great day.
Thank you.